Well, good morning, everybody. It's 11:30. We'll get started with the pre-commission agenda. For the president's report, I'll just share that this morning I was able to participate in a Leadership Boise local government forum with Ada County Commissioner Rod Beck. And so that was a really fun opportunity to talk about the roles of our governments and what we do at the county level. Are there any general housekeeping items or discussion of the agenda from the commissioners?
Just one item was removed, right?
Okay. There is an item that was removed. So the agenda has been modified and the removed item will come back at a later date. Director Head, I'll turn it over to you if you have any additional comments to that, and then the director's report.
Madam President, no, I just wanted to answer any questions if there were any.
Commissioner Nelson.
President, on the agenda, we have a number of setting hearing dates for vacations.
Mhm.
And on today's agenda, there's an item that is one, but in those future items, it would be helpful to have beyond just the map today, but some perspective of where, particularly if it's a segment, it'd be helpful to me to look at where that is on the master street map or the official highway map to see where it sits in the system of rights of way, opened or unopened, all those permutations, because that will help me pretty quickly come to, is there a public purpose still for this segment? So some of the maps are good, but I would like a little bigger picture of those existing maps that we can maybe clip and include in the future reports. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. We can do that.
Director Head.
All right. Well, Commission, excited to start this new year and continue on with the wonderful work the team is doing and share with you some thoughts on what's happening now. As we continue to emphasize that building infrastructure is the most important thing that we do as a highway district. As we work with our partners, we're having wonderful conversations with different agencies on different ways we can work together. And this continues to be a great opportunity as we focus on building that infrastructure. One example of building together that I wanted to share with you, in an upcoming agenda, you'll have a request to surplus a dump truck. Now, this dump truck has already been replaced. So after we replace a vehicle, we sometimes keep them in preparation for the upcoming auction, and sometimes they remain in service for a time. Well, this particular dump truck remained in service, but in the process, the hydraulic line broke, which is it's a pricey fix. We were contacted by Nampa Highway District, who showed some interest in getting that in securing that from us, and they'll make the repairs, and so they've offered us a certain amount, and that will be discussed when the item comes forward. But ultimately, this will be cheaper for us and also be very beneficial for them, as opposed to us having to get it repaired before we take it to auction, hoping we can recover those costs. So what a great example of working. The team is always looking at opportunities that we can partner with other agencies and help other government agencies to manage those costs.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
So this is a pop quiz. Oops, sorry, this is a pop quiz. Has to do with our getting rid of surplus equipment like this. When we find so many people are so anxious to get a hold of our surplus equipment, how much of a conversation do we have about, should we keep this for just a little longer and put the money into it, or should we get rid of it? Do we discuss that at any length?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, we have a fleet manager and a team that looks at all vehicles very closely before we decide to surplus. In this case, to repair would be about $30,000. We would hope on the auction we could get about 30 to 35. And so in this case, Nampa has offered us around 15, but without us having to make the repair first. So it's beneficial to us to not pay that 30,000. They'll take that cost on themselves, and we still recover costs from the vehicle. So instead of paying 45,000 to repair it and then sell it, we're gonna gain money off
So this
sale.
isn't like repairing a heater hose with duct tape and,
Unfortunately, people don't want to buy those.
oh,
So, and our team's pretty professional in how they handle things. Next, just wanted to, as we coordinate with other agencies, we do have a joint meeting next week, next Tuesday at 4:30 at Meridian City Hall. These are the items that are on the agenda that we've worked out with the other agencies, and we'll have these items for discussion next week, and just wanted you to have that ahead of time. Another example of how our team looks for opportunities to build more, as part of the U-Stick project that we have going, the widening project that we have going, one of the detour routes would be McMillan Road. And the McMillan and Black Cat intersection was a place where there was, we were going to need at least a signal to keep that operating during the construction. Well, our traffic team saw this as an opportunity, one, to build a signal. We had the parts and the resources available, and our team was able to go to get it done very quickly without that having to be included in the contract. So saving money to the taxpayers and providing the resources and the detour route, keeping that going during the construction. This is a new and more preferred route to the high school, and so is a key location. So our team is always looking for these opportunities where we can step in and make the improvement to save the taxpayer the cost of that. So wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of our upcoming budget adjustment that's proposed in the next couple weeks. It will come before you first part of February. And just as I've highlighted over the last number of months, we were taking a deep look at our budget and how we're spending and where there are opportunities to manage our expenses. And so I wanted to touch on, last week I mentioned some of our goals for this year and had one of the items on there was the just right operating budget. And so I wanted to kind of give a little bit more detail of that so that when the budget comes forward, you know where some of these costs are coming from. So one of the things that the team looked very closely at is how can we keep our capital budget at what our capital budget is? And how do we manage any changes in cost within that budget? And so they looked very closely, and so what's being proposed has looked to do that. How can they balance that internally? Now, there are some places where the budget will go up, but it's because they found additional funds that will come with it. So it's a revenue neutral increase, but the team has definitely worked very hard to make sure that capital budget is staying within the resources that we have available. Some of the other things that we've looked at on the operating side, for example, is we always try and make sure that the team has the training opportunities available to them if they need to travel to maintain their certifications and other things. The commission has always been so supportive of that. But since COVID, we know that there's been a lot of opportunities for virtual conferences, for other ways to receive that training. And so the team is looking very closely at every training opportunity and saying, are there other ways we can do this that would save travel expenses and costs for the taxpayers? The team has done a great job at looking at this, and while we still will have budget available for training that's needed for certifications and other things, generally we're trying to find if there's another option we can do it, we're trying to take that. Another way in which the team is sharpening the pencil is looking at some of the incentives and the benefits that we have available. There were some incentives that were put in place post-COVID where it was really hard to find people and get people to come to work. At one point in time, we had up to 40 openings, and now that number is very small, very close to the single digits. But so some of those incentives to try and that were intended, they were longevity benefits, but they were more retention benefits. Trying to hold on. We've looked at that and we've standardized that, which actually we found a way that benefits everybody in that process and make sure that those benefits are universally available to everyone, no matter how long they've been here. But still, while providing a positive thank you for people at the longevity when they reach those longevity timeframes. Another example of how we've looked at this, we took a deep look at the budget and found that one of the things ACHD's offered for a number of years is an Air St. Luke's membership. It's for staff, it was about $35,000. Well, as we look a little bit closer, we found that within our medical benefits, we also covered air transport. And so we were able to remove that cost and save the taxpayers that amount of money. Now these may seem like small things, but truly they add up. I would think, and some of the things that we're looking at here, you're probably in the realm of about $500,000 a year that we're trying to save. So, just
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, Ryan, I'm curious because I've read the Regents Blue Shield materials ad nauseum, and I didn't see any duplication of coverage that the St. Luke's provided, as far as like they come and get you when you're, have a heart attack in the mountains and stuff like that. I think we need to get a little bit more detail on that.
Absolutely, Madam President.
Or if we decide to get rid of it anyway, that it still be allowed as a payroll deduction or something.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that is an option, and we've let staff know that it is available to them that they could still sign on if they want that added benefit. The team did look at our insurance to make sure that it would be covered and found that it is available within our coverage. They confirmed that before.
Can you
we
ask
made that
someone to
decision.
show me where that is?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Another way staff is continuing to look at how are we deploying and can we more efficiently deploy our resources. And an example of this, the team is continuing to do training on the deployment of our mag chloride and salt and sand with the team to make sure that we are efficiently deploying it and using the resources only as needed for the roadways. So these are just some examples how the team is looking at all different levels to make sure that we are expending resources on the things that we need to expend them on and saving taxpayer dollars there. One area that in looking at a just right operating budget, we also want to make sure that we do have the proper staffing in the areas where it's most needed. And there are some areas that looking over the request, and I received a list of about 10 to 11 requests that were needed at this time. We identified a few that really are essential that we are going to be proposing within this budget adjustment to fund and bring before you for approval. Our signal construction crew, as the demands of that work, as you saw the good work that they did with the interim signal, there's an opportunity to really double the resources of that crew with a single additional lead worker. And that lead worker would allow the crew to be split into two groups, Monday through Thursday and a Tuesday through Friday, and allow that team to be able to work and accomplish work at two different locations. One of the challenges with that team is you have to have a certified electrician on site, and that lead worker would provide that resource. So that is a request that we're going to propose, and we really believe that will help accelerate and keep rapid projects rapid and keeping things, that crew is really good at building things that need to be built while we're managing the cost right now where electricians can be very expensive. The crew is very good at getting things done with the resources that we have. Another thing that we've continued to watch over the last few years is the impact of as the resources our paint crew has. I think Commissioner Pickering, you've mentioned this and some of the things that you've heard from the public. Really in the spring, summertime, that paint crew being able to keep up with our chip seal and the work that our chip seal does, with the team, and the different markings that are needed, and with the growth that's occurring, we do believe that there is need to add to that crew, another full-time position. The benefit of this is, as the commission has approved the purchase of an additional striper, this would allow us to operate multiple stripers at the same time and really increase the resources and to get those paint markings done in the way that we believe need to be done for the public from a safety perspective. So that would be one additional general equipment operator there. The next is assigned crew member. And actually this would be an individual who would be a rover between paint and signs. So they would help with paint during the summertime, and they would help with the signs during the winter time when the paint crews are in-house. If you didn't know, I found it quite surprising to learn that in order to meet the retroreflectivity standards, you're generally replacing signs once every 20 years. Well, we have 500,000 signs. In order to do that, I did some back of the napkin math with our staff. They would need to be replacing a sign every hour, every staff member, every hour, all year, in order to meet that standard on a 20-year basis. Now, they have repairs, that people who knock down signs, there's different things that happen. And so that's clearly we're not able to keep up with that. And so adding this additional crew member that can help out in the winter time, do that, continue to help with the surge, that's the recommendation here for that person. So that's another general equipment operator. Our broom crew, we are recommending the addition of 3 additional positions for our broom crew. One would be a crew chief and then 2 additional GEOs. The crew chief, the recommendation for that, our current crew chief has a team of 32 people. For a crew chief, that is a lot of people. It's standard size of a crew is probably in the area of 9 or 10 to 15. He has really double that. He uses lead workers currently, but that's one of the additions. This allows us to have 2 different crews and we'll make sure that they have the leadership they need in the work that they need to do. The other thing that's really driving this, as we took a look at our requirements from an environmental and stormwater perspective, we have the staffing to meet our requirements, but not much else. So those requirements are very specific to areas where we have permits, which are Boise, Garden City, and a portion of Meridian. Well, the Star, Eagle, Cuna, other areas, there are needs to sweep in those areas. And if we dedicate the resources to what we really need there, we'll have a much harder time maintain, or the level of service will go down significantly outside of that. And so we are recommending this additional lead worker so that we can split the crews and have a crew that's dedicated to meeting the permitting requirements, as well as having the additional staff to help take care of those outlying areas. So that's a total of 6 positions. Now, the good news is, as I said, we're constantly looking at things. That signal construction lead worker, we actually found within our existing positions that we have the opportunity to repurpose one of our one position and to shift that over and take care of that now. So it's actually going to only be 5 in the end. But those were, in meeting those essential needs, we're constantly looking at, are there positions that we can repurpose so that we can take care of these needs that are most important at this point in time. So you'll see the budget numbers when that comes forward. Generally, this is about $500,000 in terms of staffing needs, but we're looking at are we saving about that much in some of the operating adjustments we're trying to make, and so that we can keep that budget at where it is, if not smaller. Lastly, as we've been working on facilities, both with our new headquarters, with our traffic operations center, with the new Adams Yard, the commitment is that these funds, the funding for this one will come from strategic reserves the commission has set aside over the years. And so that any changes in the cost in those will always be coming from that pod or that pocket of money, and not from cutting any of the capital projects that we're trying to get done.
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering?
Ryan, thank you for this overview. And obviously there's going to be a little bit more detail, I'm assuming, right, coming later.
Yeah.
I just would love in that discussion to know how many more miles the additional 1.5 FTEs on like the paint crew will provide for us, just to make sure. And if you think that that's going to get us a little bit closer to meeting the actual need. And then of course, with the weather, the smokiest and hottest summer we've had in God knows how long, just kind of a sense around how are we strategizing, leveraging these FTEs and the additional folks, right, to fit in within smaller windows of time. So that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Commissioner Pickering, when we started seeing some of the concerns come in on the paint crew, I asked the team, what do you need to solve this? And this is what they are proposing. So we do believe that this will get us what we need, but we'll make sure to have that answer for you.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, like Commissioner Pickering said, plus I remember some conversations that we've already had with regards to our chip sealing deficiencies and our needs there. And I know the broom crew and the paint crew are critical to that, to allow us to keep going longer than we have done in the past. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and thanks for your efforts on sharpening the pencil, particularly. One comment on the staff training I just want to put out there is that I found, like, when I had to get building inspector certified, sometimes they did just have to go away, study, take the test. So I would not be averse to you having to make those calls,
Absolutely.
that sometimes it's better for the business operations that they go away, do it, than try to string out and fit in virtual programs over a long period of time. So I just wanted to put that out there, that sometimes you just gotta go away. Second, on the, we pay a lot of attention to population growth and what we're gonna need as another 200,000 people come here. But I'd really, and I'm just planting seeds here, what is our growth in lane miles? And then what are our standards for all of these maintenance needs per lane mile? And some, I'm sure there's an asset management program and we talk about that, but I would be curious 10 years from now, what are we going to need? What is this board going to be looking at? Is there some standard you need so many per lane mile or per sign, per 500,000 signs, but just to kind of understand that's part of growth too, not just building roads, but maintaining the system. And that was the whole foundation for Blueprint for Good Growth, of when that maintenance budget was going to really overtake the agency here. So I am curious on what that looks like going forward. So
Absolutely.
we can have another conversation, but part of it too is, having come off the Capital Improvement Committee, I'd like to have you think about, are there capital needs that could be part of the impact fee that other fire stations put in the trucks and things like that? Or are there other capital needs that are impact fee eligible?
Thank you. Okay. Last, just wanted to, again, reiterate the items that are coming up. Most of these we've discussed. And again, we're quickly coming closer to that move out day at the Orchard location, and we expect within a short time after that, they will be able to move into the Meeker location. So exciting times, lots going on this January, but lots of good projects that are happening. Again, the largest capital budget year or capital construction year we've ever had. And it's fun watching how well the team is responding to that and to see a lot of good work getting done. That I'll stand for any questions.
Great, thanks, Director.
Thank you.
We'll be at ease for 5 minutes until noon. Well, welcome, everybody. It's now 12 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Thanks, everybody, joining us in person and online, and please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. I don't believe we have any requests, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam
Oh.
President, I'll move we approve it. I just want to note I was not on the commission on December 11th minutes, so note that.
If there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That moves us to the regular agenda. We have a vacation, public hearing and adoption of resolution number 2431 to vacate a portion of public right-of-way. This is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And welcome, Carrie.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Carrie Niesel, I'm the Real Estate Management Specialist for ACHD. And this is a public hearing and decision briefing presentation on a proposed right-of-way vacation located at North Reed Street in Garden City, Idaho. Okay, so ACHD is proposing to vacate a remnant segment of North Reed Street that is currently splitting ACHD's ownership in order to create a larger assemblage before a disposition. The proposal is for approximately half an acre or roughly 24,000 square feet of right-of-way. So the right-of-way shown here in red lies within Garden City limits west of the Boise River, and it's just across the street from us here at ACHD headquarters and directly adjacent to our maintenance facility. So here's a little history of Reed Street. Originally, Reed Street was created in 1948 when the existing subdivision was further divided and new access was needed. However, the plat only established the right-of-way that was adjacent to those new parcels. It didn't actually extend past that subdivision down to Adams Street. In 1971, when they did split those subdivisions again, the remainder of Reed Street, then all the way down to Adams Street, was platted on the D. Harden plat. And then now in 2022, the Blue Heron subdivision is established adjacent to that D. Harden subdivision, and the right-of-way that's now known as East Heron Park Street was dedicated, providing access to both subdivisions. So therefore, the subject portion of Reed Street is no longer needed, thus the proposal for the vacation today. Here's a site map that kind of shows what it was I was just talking about there. Our ownership is in green, and you can see how that vacated, the vacation that's approximately 500 feet of Reed Street will eliminate the segregation of our property in whole. The new East Heron Park Street will now provide the necessary connectivity for vehicles and greenbelt access in that area. And it's worth noting that this vacation is actually the first step in our long-term strategy for the site to prepare it for future dispositions so that the maintenance facility can be relocated from Garden Street out to the new site there at Federal Way and Apple. So with that, it's staff recommendation that the commission adopts and signs a resolution 2431 to vacate the proposed portion North Reed Street as all the commission and staff requirements have been met. So this concludes the presentation and I'll remain standing for any questions.
Any questions?
One-
President?
Commissioner McKinney?
Yes, Carrie, if you could just sort of talk generally about the upshot, the result of this will be that the right of way will be abandoned and, or will be, vacated. And that property will then be consolidated with the remaining ACHD parcels.
Yes,
So in a case like that, where a public agency abandons public facilities and then merges them with other public properties, is there any kind of a legal nuance that's required from the standpoint of, here's a public thing on one hand and it's benefiting the agency on the other hand? Is there any kind of an issue there with respect to, for regular people, you'd have a concern about self-dealing. In the case of an agency like this, is that an issue? And maybe this is a legal question, I don't know. But that's kind of, just curious if that complicates things at all in this situation, or if it's not an issue at all.
I'm going to go ahead and let our attorney take it.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, for the record, Scott Spears, Assistant General Counsel. No, there is no issue with self-dealing or any of that. It is, and as a point of fact, being converted from one public use to another, and that it is being consolidated into public property from right of way. So from a legal standpoint, there's no issues here.
Okay. I just want to check on that because it's an unusual situation that doesn't
It-
come up very often.
Yeah, yes, it is unusual.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Did you?
No, I was just gonna ask if if we were gonna tear the asphalt up or if we could still use it for a go-kart track.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, you may use it for a track. We don't intend on actually pulling the roadway up. So in the time between now and then, when we no longer own it, people can still use it for accessing the green belt or walking on it and
Cool.
whatnot.
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Especially because this is obviously part of this big hopefully when we sell off this property, right, and all that good stuff. Has there been any communication with the city of Garden City and any concerns that they have about us vacating Reed Street?
We have had comments from them,
Okay.
and I do believe they are represented here today and would like to speak to the issue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm seeing no other questions. We can take comments from anybody in person. Okay, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am Jenna Thornborough with the City of Garden City, and Garden City does ask that you carefully consider this request and weighing the pros and the cons to make sure that it's not only in the public's best or in the public's interest, but the public's best interest as you move forward with your decision. There were two different departments from Garden City that commented on this vacation. The first of which, the city attorney provided comment on behalf of the Public Works Department. And he asked that I did clarify today that there are, that the easement process to vacate the water and sewer lines would need to be fulfilled. It's not a shoe-in deal. Should those lines be ceased from use, it would need to go through the vacation process still. And with that, I'm sure you saw within the packet, what I'm referring to is that the Public Works Department said that there could be no users in order to vacate those lines in order to vacate the easement. And I just want to show here, this is, okay. if I do it here. The vacation is, I might, if you may, just walk over and point to it.
The mouse
Thank
shows
you.
up. There
I
you go.
appreciate it. Is right in this area. However, here we have Orchard and 36 that goes through and turns into Adams Street in the waterfront district. At the time that the waterfront district was developed, I believe ACHD required that they put up signage and have a stub street noting that Adams Street will connect in the future. And then you have Adams Street that does connect clear over to Glenwood. Also in 2022, Compass, on another effort, provided a traffic impact study, and at a medium growth rate within the area, they anticipated that Adams may see up to 100% increase in traffic on Adams Street. So should that road ever go through, there's only one lot in between Adams Street and the Adams Street stubs. And the growth that Garden City and the adjacent areas are seeing, you could potentially see quite a bit additional traffic going down Adams Street.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldberg.
a question, how would that impact the vacation of Reed Street?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I'll get to that in just a second, and hopefully I'll be able to explain that well. Here you see a dedicated green belt access. And in the Garden City's planning documents, as well as I believe ACHD's planning documents, there's a call for a crossing of Chinden at 38th Street. 38th Street is pretty low stress. There's not a lot of use of 38th Street. And so if you're traversing and you cross and you can utilize the Reed Street currently to access that green belt connection. Should it be vacated and redeveloped, then users would have to go down Adams Street for a short amount of time and then go up the new Heron Street to connect.
Madam President?
Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes, would that not be a land use that the city of Garden City could require when that land is developed, so that there could be a pathway where Reed Street sits right now? Because I don't see that as a problem for us.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Goldthorpe, in the state of Idaho, certainly there could be a request for public right-of-way. But in that, either you have to pay for it, as I'm sure everybody knows, or there are certain circumstances such as a subdivision that you could require it. However, Garden City is seeing quite large redevelopments that actually aren't subdividing. So an example might be the Boardwalk Apartments that is off of 41st. That's an example of a property that already has hundreds of units and also commercial. I think there are 8 restaurants opening up down there and they never subdivided. And so asking for that public right-of-way public right-of-way may end up in a situation where the city would then have to pay for additional right-of-way if required. And it's also the city's understanding that the ACHD would require any local street that are not collector or arterials to be initiated and paid for by the city. So, one other thing to note is that the greenbelt in that vacation request is getting more and more congested throughout Garden City, particularly in this area. And I'm going to say to the east of this area. And in that, we're seeing conflict, especially during high use times, of those utilizing the greenbelt for transportation and those utilizing the greenbelt for recreation, especially in the summer months. And one identified way of addressing that is creating the low stress spines for people to get around. And right now, with current right-of-way with Reed Street, that can also act as on-street parking for users trying to access the Greenbelt. Garden City is seeing Greenbelt access becoming more and more contested as redevelopment occurs, as the valley grows. We're seeing, in my tenure with Garden City, we've seen a number, at least 3 access points that I am aware of, 4 access points that I'm aware of that weren't very clearly public be closed down to the public. We also have an application in right now for an easement vacation just east of this project that is very clearly a public access. We'll see what the city council does with that, but it is becoming more and more contested and harder to get public access that is dedicated and protected to the Greenbelt. One other, as I thought about what the ask could be today, one thought that I was thinking that absolutely I understand the assemblage being more attractive for future redevelopment of the property. But with that being said, if public right-of-way is requested of somebody that just purchased a full piece of property, that may feel disingenuous if they have to go back and put public right-of-way right back in on their dime. So they would have paid for what was already there. And so they may also need it too, though, because at certain densities, the fire department is going to require secondary access. The blocks within Garden City tend to be too big. And so what we're seeing on the denser developments is people are actually building out the Greenbelt for fire access. They may or may not want to do that or utilize something that's already dedicated to the public and maybe relocate it as a way to address their secondary access. And so for those reasons, as I looked at this, what I might suggest might be a better way of addressing this is to keep the right of way, and then while a developer purchases it, then they could relocate the right of way versus vacate it and then have to provide additional right of way at some point in the future. And with that, I very much appreciate your time and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Comments, any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Nielsen.
Yeah, hello. So I'm curious, this property's been platted, at least some of it. I don't know the extent of the D. Hardin plat, but if developer came to Garden City, can't build over a platted lot line, right? You would not allow that. So they would have to vacate lot lines or just replat was usually the easiest way to get to where you want to be, including this remnants here. Do you know how much the largest area that a developer could come in and build on without having to replat or remove a lot line? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Madam President Gold, Commissioner Nielsen, thank you for that question. I don't know off the top of my head. I believe that this piece of property is about 13 acres, and this would be the area that would need to go through some sort of lot line reductions. And the Garden City does that through the density reductions through a lot line adjustment. And so foreseeably, they could go through without replatting. They could also readjust the lines, including the right-of-way in that process, or they could completely replat.
Any other questions?
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Thanks, Jenna, for being here. Really appreciate it. And then also offering just some other ideas for us to mull over. Obviously, this is a huge piece of property that I'm just so excited to see what comes of us moving out. So obviously, whatever it is that comes out of this decision, happy that you're here to come work with us on what that looks like. But I mean, in terms of the reality like that, the parcels that are broken off by Reed Street, it's not a very practical piece of property, right, to build. But I've noticed too in some of your more latest developments and just some of the smaller, denser ones, how you guys have done a lot of private roads as well. I I appreciate your solution, but I'm just wondering in terms of, you know, the property size itself and seeing how a lot of these developers are not using our right of way, right? Because they're still having to do their own roads to bridge those connections, for parking, right? So how does that factor into this request?
Madam Chair Gold, Commissioner Pickering, thank you for that. What we do see is you're absolutely correct, is they're trying to achieve densities and it's not economical for them to put in a full public right of way. And so we're seeing common drives act as private roads to achieve the densities. That certainly goes back to the point where if that is the case, it may be harder to best protect the public's interest to that greenbelt to access. Going down a private road versus a public right of way.
I guess, so follow-up question, but this current right of way does not connect to the green. I mean, there's, right, because there's this property that connects above it. Or does it? Because that's not clear on this map.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pickering, this is the connection right here.
Okay.
And so there is a direct connection. If vacated, then the users of, say, the neighborhoods 38th or south of Chinden currently can come up and walk through or ride their bike through Reed Street, or probably more common occurrence, bicyclists that are getting off of the greenbelt because of the congestion can hop over and get on there. There is a public park directly adjacent. Parking is limited there. This just offers a little bit more parking and reduces the need of having to traverse on Adams Street. And so for those users that, like me, for an example, it's not personal testimony, but I tend to try to stay completely on very low stress routes and not get off of those.
So then does that public access that connects to the greenbelt, it looks like it also comes off of, and I can't totally see that. So is it East Heron? Does it connect to that street as well? So there is an opportunity to connect to that public access to the greenbelt from another public street?
Yes, Madam President Gold, it does connect to Heron. And so the connection would be off of Adams to Heron.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if we're done with the testimony, if we could have that legal description map that was in our packet shown. I just wanted to verify the extent of the northern vacation line and that the greenbelt access, what you're testifying is it is still north of there. Or is it close? I guess I want to have that staff confirm. And that is, and I guess the question would be, is that access, is that a recorded easement? How is that? What's the permanency of that?
Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, unfortunately, I did not look up what that easement is right now. However, this is a public park, and so access through the park would be pretty well dedicated, I would say.
Thanks. If there are no other questions, Jenna, we appreciate your comment. And
Thank you.
All right,
I do
thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Justin, did you have any insight to or answers to those concerns or questions? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other folks in person or online who would like to additionally comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Justin?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the commission. Just a few items of clarification, and I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. As was stated by Carrie, this vacation has been long discussed and planned for as part of our disposition ultimately of the Adams maintenance yard. That street that you were referencing, East Heron Park Street, was actually constructed by ACHD, and the name of that project was the Reed Street Realignment. So we realigned Reed Street already, and essentially vehicular access to Reed Street, other than a driveway provided off East Heron, is now restricted. So you can't drive down 38th and go right onto Reed Street anymore. We've closed that off in anticipation of this action from the commission. So I just wanted to clarify that, number one. Number two, I also think it's really important today that what you're being asked to consider is not a development application or some sort of future decision on a future development. This is solely the vacation of right-of-way, which staff believes should be vacated because it is no longer a necessity for public use. The questions related to Greenbelt access and all of that, I think, are really good. When ACHD built East Heron Park Street, we actually extended a multi-use pathway from the connection at the park all the way to Adams. So there is a multi-use pathway connection that goes all the way to Adams now. And we have remained and left open access on the previous Reed Street. So you can use that as an option also. All of the questions related to easements, Greenbelt access, potential future roadways, that would all be dealt with through a development application at a future date, which staff can't speak to now because we're not proposing anything, and it's unlikely ACHD would be the developer. It would be a subsequent developer of the site. So that's kind of my general comments. If there was something specific you wanted me to address, I'm glad to do that. I can't answer the question on the Greenbelt access. This vacation does not leave some kind of barrier for access to the Greenbelt. You can access the Greenbelt directly from the pathway next to the park onto East Heron Park Street, uninterrupted on a 10-foot multi-use pathway all the way to Adams Street today.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
Justin, and I don't know if this is a better question for Carrie or for you, but the purpose for the vacation is to consolidate the parcels so that when ACHD leaves the maintenance yard, it has a single parcel to sell. What is the likely difference in value between things as they now stand, if they were to be sold without this vacation, compared to with the combined parcels? What kind of a difference in value do we likely have there?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, it's hard for me off the top of my head to give you a value. I would say it adds property, approximately, I think it was about a half acre of property to the sale. So if property's going for, such and such per acre.
Oh, yes, a value.
So if property's going for, $1 million an acre or something like that in this area, which isn't crazy, a property like this, and that's what Dave just showed me, would be worth maybe $500,000.
Sure, and that's just the property cost
That's
itself.
just the property cost
You don't
itself.
have the value aspect of a small triangular parcel separated from a larger parcel, and the potential awkwardness of developing two separate parcels as opposed to one
Yeah,
consolidated.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I think that's harder to estimate. I
Right.
think, I've been involved in land development and road construction for a long time, and I can tell you that that triangular piece of property, as kind of bifurcated by Reed Street, there's certainly an impact on the value of that, and the redevelopment potential there. And I think it's pretty clear that if a developer were to come in and essentially purchase all of this, the alignment of Reed Street as it stands today is not really probably what any developer would do. They would want to, do their layout based on their overall development plan, which is why we believe the vacation is really important, because then it provides kind of an open, clean slate for the developer to come in and do their development plan and their access plan, which could include access to the Greenbelt and to other public roads, private roads. All of that would be discussed at that time. And I do want to make it clear that it's certainly possible and maybe even likely that ACHD and the city of Boise can and would require an extension of a public street into this site in the future. And there's nothing you're doing today that eliminates that opportunity. And I just want to, I think that's very clear. I think there may have been a comment that Garden City would be required to pay for that. I don't think that's correct. I think in a development situation with a development plan and some type of circulation plan that may require a public street, that public street, a local street, would be required to be constructed by the developer. And then the new right of way in whatever alignment that is would be dedicated at that time.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering.
I just want to, that was one of my questions for you, Justin. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
Any other questions for Justin?
I guess, could you provide, and thank you for jogging our memories about the Reed Street alignment and improving Heron. Could you give us a little bit more of a history around the years? Because I mean, it happened while in my last term. So could you just give us for the public record as well, what the sequencing of that was?
Absolutely. We started the design work on East Heron Park Street, which we called the Reed Street alignment, probably 4 years ago. I think the construction year on that was 2023. Maybe 2023, 2022, where we constructed that street. We had good discussions about the pathway connection, the landscaping requirements from the city, and we worked with the city and met all of their requirements on that roadway. And essentially at that time, that triggered this whole process. And then we've been working through it and now bringing this forward as we continue to prepare for ultimately the disposition of this property.
Madam President, follow-up question.
Commissioner.
Obviously, this is still, that the sale of this property is still a ways out, right? There's a lot of nuances with that obviously I'm looking forward to discussing and learning more about. But in another scenario of this too, wouldn't the developer, because to your point, I just don't see a developer leveraging Reed Street in a way that is compatible with the rest of the two parcels. In terms of maximum efficiency and profit, right? And all of the other land use challenges that they're working with. I feel like, is it out of the realm of possibility is probably how I should phrase this, that the developer themselves would probably have to approach us to vacate this property as well?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, no, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. I think you see that quite often where a roadway that is no longer kind of aligned in for redevelopment purposes is a requested vacation happens. In this case, you may have a vacation and exchange from a future developer, all of that. There's different options that could happen. We certainly as staff have looked at this pretty carefully, and we believe it's actually most advantageous for certainly ACHD, the public interest, and the future development to provide them with a clean slate to allow that then to move forward. And when it comes to the any type of utilities or anything like that, ACHD is not proposing to vacate any utilities or utility easements. We are not fencing the property. We're not closing access to the property. Essentially, what you see there today after your action will be what you see there tomorrow and until we vacate the property. And then even then, it would be changed only through redevelopment.
Great. No other questions? Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam President. I would make a motion to approve the request for approval for the vacation of and the adoption of resolution number 2431 to vacate a portion of the right-of-way for all the reasons that we have been discussing. Plus the reason, because I'm kind of simple about all these things, is we might not even be considering anything related to this if it wasn't such an urgent need made known to us by the city of Garden City, as well as other reasons for us to be moving. And it would definitely be far and away in the public's best interest to receive possibly millions of dollars more for this property with this vacation happening than less if the vacation were not allowed to happen. So that's why I'm making the motion.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam President?
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, I really appreciate the testimony of Garden City, but I will say redevelopment's hard, and this will make it a little simpler. I don't think it'll be a total blank slate because you're dealing with plats that are decades old. There may be needs with utilities. The Greenbelt connection is not threatened by this. So I'll just wanted to say those are the reasons I'll be supporting the motion.
Commissioner Pickering?
Madam President, Jenna, thank you for coming. And I really want you to know that even with this, if this is moving forward as a result of the support of the commission, that access to the Greenbelt, fire safety, connection, and all of the things that you mentioned are so important to me. And that whatever comes of the sale or what, like we have, again, I feel like there's so much that I still don't know about the various steps and things that we can work with the city on in terms of dreaming up what the ideal scenario is for this property. I just want you to know that we, and at least especially me, are going to be a partner in making sure that those things that that the city needs and the Greenbelt deserves and the people of this, I would say metro area, to be frank, because it's not just Garden City, but it's the broader community, that we're going to be really good stewards of that throughout this process. So if there is some challenges as a result of this vacation, you have my commitment that we'll try and do other things that make that a little bit easier and replace that challenge if that is in fact creating a challenge.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Pickering. I do want to echo those comments, and I really appreciate you coming and speaking on behalf of the city, Jenna. And you know, that piece of Greenbelt access in general is just, it is really important, and it's something that I consistently hear from folks in my district too. And so as this continues to develop, you know, move forward, and however we can support and be good partners, we're committed to doing that, and just appreciate your comments today. All right, with that, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next up is discussion items. Any public communications? Anybody in person or online who would like to speak to the commission?
I do not have anybody who would
All right.
like to. Give me a minute for.
Okay, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. We will move into the post-commission agenda. We have a work session. It is the 2026 to 2035 year plan early check-in work session, presentation by staff. And here we go. Welcome, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. First off, I want to say congratulations, President Gold, and welcome to Commissioner Nielsen.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Rebecca Phillips, Transportation Planner with ACHD Planning. The purpose of today's work session is to kick off the development of the 26-30 5-year plan. This includes a brief review of our programming framework, public and partner agency outreach efforts, the plan development schedule, and some early programming objectives moving into this update. We will also be going over all of the key dates to be aware of as this year-long effort moves forward. We are excited to share that starting with this iteration, the plan formerly known as the Integrated 5-Year Plan will now be referred to as ACHD's 5-year plan. This change was made collaboratively to simplify the name, reduce misspellings, and ensure a clearer, more transparent approach to our complex planning process. As a refresher, on our planning framework, the development of the 5-year plan is meticulously structured using various guiding documents and supportive efforts. The cities and county develop comprehensive plans that establish the land use vision for their areas. This information is utilized by Compass for demographic projections and the travel demand model. These projections and models inform the strategic plan for asset management and resource allocation, and combined with our asset management plan, ADA plan, bike master plan, neighborhood plans, and the CIP, they form the foundation in which the 5-year plan is developed. So now let's touch on a bit of the project selection. That's the lower image. ACHD receives project requests from numerous sources, including our adopted plans, such as the neighborhood plans, bike master plan, and the CIP mentioned above. We also receive requests from our partners, that's the cities, the county, and the school districts, the public, and through our community program application process. All of these projects are entered into our database and evaluated against our prioritization methodology. And this methodology examines each project against the criteria such as distance to schools, civic facilities, transit, partner agency priorities, and disadvantaged communities, just to name a few. After prioritization, projects move through several additional stages, and this includes scoping, which examines project feasibility and cost, as well as factors such as agency priority changes, immediate safety needs, commission direction, geographic equity, and funding limitations before they can be incorporated into the 5-year plan. So moving on to the schedule for the 2630 plan. As you can see, the development of this plan is quite extensive. This is a year-long process. And throughout this time, we collaborate closely with our partner agencies at multiple stages, conduct thorough public outreach, and undergo heavy internal discussions regarding programming milestones and decisions. We will be presenting to you several more times throughout this year-long process to ensure that you remain updated and informed. The initial draft release is scheduled for mid-July, with the adoption of the plan scheduled for September 24th. Regarding the initial outreach that is currently underway, we held our partner kickoff meeting on December 5th, which initiated the partner agency's review of their priority lists. Those are due back to us by March 19th. And during this period, we are offering individual staff on-staff meetings and 5-year plan 101 presentations to their councils or their boards upon request. And several agencies have been taking advantage of these opportunities so far. We have presentations set up with Meridian, Boise, and CUNA, and we've had several touch points with different staff over the last few months. Our public outreach commenced on January 8th, and this will run for 1 month, closing on February 5th. This outreach is being conducted through an interactive map, which I'll detail on the next slide. And it's being advertised through our social media outreach, neighborhood groups, and our advisory committees. Here's a snapshot of our ongoing public outreach efforts. There are a few ways for the public to participate. On the first tab that's on the top left-hand corner, the public can rank and provide feedback on the currently adopted projects in the 25-29 integrated 5-year plan. And on that second tab, that picture below right-hand corner, the public can rank and comment on any projects in our new Beyond 2029 tab. And this is that new tab that we created last year that encompasses all of the projects in ACHD's database that encompass requests from partners, the public, staff, elected officials, and all future projects from the 2020 CIP. Each tab allows the participants to click on their project of interest, read the project details and schedule, and provide their feedback and rank on a scale of 1 to 3. All of the feedback generated will be sent back to our partners to assist them in developing their priority lists. And to date, we have 416 comments. Now let's highlight a few of our early programming objectives. For the first 2 years, 26 and 27, the plan will be developed with a balanced budget as normal. This year, we aim to approach project programming with an enhanced flexibility, incorporating overprogramming in the out years, also ensuring more transparency throughout our process, and providing increased staff-to-staff availability meetings. As you recall, last year we came to you on how inflation has impacted project programming. This year, our main focus will be on acceleration of our partner agency top priorities.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney?
Rebecca, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we go back a line here? That phrase proactive overprogramming in out years. Could you explain what is meant by that? I want
Yes,
to be sure I clearly understand it.
Yep. Madam President, Commissioners. Overprogramming essentially is just more projects than expected revenue. And this offers the district the flexibility to add projects in or anticipate project delays or unanticipated revenue, such things like that.
So would that be, for example, as you say, 26 and 27, we program it based upon expected revenue,
Mhm.
but for years after that, we might expect to get, X million dollars, and we're going to actually put in about, I don't know, 40 or 50% more than that in projects. And then as we get closer, we pare that down to the ones we're actually going to do. Is that what we're talking about?
Madam President, Commissioners, yes.
Okay, thank you.
One topic to stay apprised of is the sunsetting of the VRF registration fee funds that sunsets in 2028. This will necessitate a closer examination of the development of strategies for FY '29 and beyond. However, it is staff's main goal to examine the ways how we can continue to build more. So moving on to the commission key dates to be aware of. Throughout the months of March and April, we'll be reaching out to schedule commission one-on-ones. Those are obviously optional, but highly encouraged, so we can hear from you guys on your project priorities or explain any questions along the way of the 5-year plan process. We'll be back for a work session on May 14th to talk about the partner agency public comments that we got on this first initial round of outreach. And initial draft, that's going to be planned to be released, will be here for a work session. That's going to be released the day after our work session on July 17th, followed by the budget adoption hearing for August 27th. And then after we release that initial draft, we'll go out for a second comment period. We'll be back to you with those results on September 3rd, and adoption hearing is set for September 24th. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions? Nope.
I
Commissioner
guess I
Nelson?
always have a question, but
Yeah.
as someone who used to manage a TIP when I was much younger, how does the district vet the projects in the out years so that they're realistic, that they can actually happen and they are not hogging up space in those over-programmed? What kind of filter, or is there a filter for what can be in that list of the outer projects, or what I would call PD?
Madam President, Commissioners, that's a great question. We do scoping throughout the process of each project. So when we anticipate a project coming closer into the current years, we are going out to scope that project. We have a team that reviews that scoping, and that gives us an estimate of cost and feasibility, and we're able to examine the other aspects of the project. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that there's scoping. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I have one more question, Madam President. How, having seen it as being on a neighborhood board, how do you encourage the neighborhood groups to work with their cities to sync up their priority lists? Or is there disconnects that you've observed on those priorities?
So, Madam President, Commissioners, I'm not exactly sure on the neighborhood groups.
Yeah, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen. So we have several tools that our partners are have access to when it comes to those requests. So we have the neighborhood plans for the entire county. All of those are done in coordination with the city, so they're aware of all of those projects. We also, every time we get one, we send them the full list of all the projects that are in those neighborhood plans. And then we also developed what's called a prioritization tool for our partners that has all of the neighborhood plans. Every partner agency requests theirs and others, our CIP project. So they have a lot of tools at their disposal, as well as she discussed, one-on-one meetings directly with staff to help them through those. So yes, no, full coordination.
Okay,
We
good.
try
Yeah.
very hard to give him all of the data. I did want to add on your prior question about vetting out those projects in the out years. That's also where our project prioritization methodology comes in, because all of those projects are then prioritized. We get internal prioritization on other infrastructure like bridges. Those aren't ranked like that. So we do have internal staff that give us prioritization on those projects too. So all of that gets applied to projects in the out years. And every year we update this plan. When partner agency requests change, we update all of that prioritization as well. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Very good.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, a little trip down memory lane. About 10 years ago, when we did all these things and we're asking for the public's input, we got dozens.
Yeah.
And then after Ryan introduced us to a new version of the integrated 5-year work plan, it went up to hundreds. And then after it became more interactive, now it's thousands. So there's been some major changes and improvements, and no excuse anymore, in my opinion, anyway, for people not being involved. And we have seen on past commissions, absolutely seen citizens' input become vital parts of projects as a result of this process. That's all.
Madam President, Commissioners, absolutely. I've been with the district almost 4 years and 2 years on the 5-year plan so far. And I've seen an increase absolutely in public comment and feedback. And
One
that's
year
what we
had
want.
1,300 suggestions for projects, if I remember right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Well, thanks so much, Christy and Rebecca. Exciting to be kicking this off again, and we look forward to you reaching out and setting up meetings with all of us.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
nothing else on the agenda. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.